Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today we've got the latest Steelers injury updates before the Black and Gold take on the Detroit Lions in Detroit here in Week 16 on Sunday afternoon. Before we get into it today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button for daily Steelers updates, whether it's on my day off like today or whether I'm in studio making some videos for you guys. I'm making sure to get you guys up-to-date Steelers content every single day. 2 free videos on this channel a day, as well as our live coverage. Of course, we'll be live on Sunday for the game, starting at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, a pregame show, live play-by-play, post-game reaction, the whole 9 yards. So if you guys want extensive Steelers coverage every single day, whether it's my day off or whatever, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. All right, so now let's get into the Steelers injury report here for Week 16. It was confirmed today that TJ Watt, Isaac Seumalo, and James Pierre are all going to be out for this week's game versus the Detroit Lions. It's also been confirmed that Nick Herbig is doubtful. Now, Herbig did sound a little bit more optimistic at practice today. He did practice today, was participating. He did not participate in practice the first 2 days of the week. He did today. Sounded optimistic about his chances of playing, but he is currently listed as doubtful to play on Sunday. And then long snapper Christian Kuntz is questionable to play. He had an injury yesterday, and they brought in actually another long snapper in case Kuntz is unable to go on Sunday afternoon, so keep your eye on that. But then guys like Derrick Harmon, Zach Frazier, and Andrus Peat are all good to go. Now, with TJ Watt and Herbig likely both out for this football game, that looks like Jack Sawyer is going to be making his NFL debut as a starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he couldn't be going up against a tougher opponent in his first ever start, as he's going up against Penei Sewell, who might be the best right tackle in all of football right now. And my guess is we're going to see a lot of runs to that side of the field with Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. So the Steelers better come prepared, ready to give Jack Sawyer some help on that side and stop the run to the right, because I think Sewell versus Sawyer is probably going to be a bit of a mismatch there in the favor of the Detroit Lions. But Sawyer, I think, has been very solid all year long. I'm not really expecting too much in terms of sack production or anything like that. All that I think we should be kind of expecting out of Sawyer here is hopefully he can hold his own in run defense, set the edge, do the things that he needs to do to keep the foundation of this run defense in particular. And it looks like Jeremiah Moon will be the rotational third edge rusher in this ball game, with Alex Highsmith leading the charge as the lead edge rusher for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Also, with James Pierre out with that calf injury for another week, that means Asante Samuel Jr. once again gets the start. My guess is he'll probably be going up against Jameson Williams, while Joey Porter Jr. goes up against Isaac Tesla, and then probably Brandon Eccles will be up against Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot. But it'll also be interesting to see if they put Jalen Ramsey in the slot more in this game. With Amon-Ra being kind of a bigger, more physical slot wide receiver, you could make an argument that Ramsey, as the bigger, more physical slot player, would be the better option compared to Brandon Eccles, who's a bit undersized. So it'll be interesting to see how the Steelers, deploy their secondary in this ball game. But also, I think a big question mark heading into this game now is because Andrus Peat has cleared concussion protocol, and we know Isaac Seumalo will be out in this football game, how are they going to line up this offensive line? Because Dylan Cook played really well at left tackle for this team last week, and I think he's earned an opportunity to get another start at left tackle. So here's what I would do. Personally, the way I would like to see them line up is they would put Dylan Cook at left tackle, they put Andrus Peat at left guard to replace Isaac Seumalo. Then you have Frazier at center, McCormick at right guard, and Fautanu at right tackle. That allows Spencer Anderson to remain as your big body elephant tight end, your jumbo tight end, whatever you guys want to call it. And Pete's played a lot of football at left guard. I think he's actually played the most at left guard in his career than any other spot on the offensive line. You put him next to Cook, I think that would, at least be serviceable for this week. And then you've got your best tackle this week, Fautanu, going to be lining up against their best edge rusher in Aiden Hutchinson. So I think that's probably the best way for the Steelers to line up. But it'll be interesting to see if they put Spencer Anderson at left guard in this football game over Andrus Peat. But I do think heading into this game, I think the way that I just laid it out, Cook at left tackle, Pete at left guard, is probably the way that they're going to be lining up on Sunday afternoon. We also got some more updates here on TJ Watt, who is back in the Steelers facility, working out, doing those sorts of things, but he was not at practice today, and according to new reports from Tom Pelissero and others, it looks like Watt is quote-unquote taking it slow right now in terms of his return to the field. Obviously, his health and making sure that lung gets back to 100% is the number one priority. But it also sounds like we're not going to see Watt until we absolutely need to see him. And what I mean by that is when the Steelers get to a point where they got to start winning football games, and now that's when we're going to see TJ Watt. So that probably means the earliest that he returns is probably week 18 versus the Baltimore Ravens. And then the latest that we see him get back is probably wild card weekend. All right. Unless, it takes a long time for this, lung to heal. I do think once the Steelers get to a point where it's like, we need TJ Watt out there, this is a do or die football game for us, it's a must win. That's when I think TJ Watt makes his return. Because other than that, the Steelers are sitting in a pretty decent spot right now. Sitting at 8-6 with a full game advantage over the Ravens. I can see why the Steelers are like, we're going to play with house money this week. Make sure Watt, is doing what he needs to do to get back healthy, all that different stuff. And then if we win, great. We can let Watt get the extra weeks of rest while hopefully he doesn't have to play again in the regular season, get him ready for the postseason. But if we do get to the point here where the Steelers need to win that season finale to make the playoffs versus the Baltimore Ravens, I expect to see TJ on the field for that game. So I would say not only this week, but probably next week versus the Browns, we will not see TJ Watt play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, obviously, we'll see what happens next week and all that different stuff, and maybe he does come back next week. But my best guess at this point is we won't see TJ Watt until at least week 18, and maybe not until the playoffs begin for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if the Steelers win this week against Detroit, and let's say they clinch the division before week 18, there's no real reason to rush TJ Watt back. So certainly possible we could see him week 18. Also possible we see him on wild card weekend. But I don't think TJ Watt has played his last game for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season, unless there's something about that lung and the recovery aspect of it that I'm missing. But now we can shift our focus to the Detroit Lions injury report here, where not only are they going to be down a number of players that we knew are going to be down in this week, guys like Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch, a bunch of other players here that, have been out for a while. They're on IR. But we also know now that free safety Kirby Joseph, another one of their really good secondary players, will be out in this game. They also have a number of players questionable, including another player in the secondary, their slot corner, Amik Robertson, as well as starting offensive linemen. They got 3 starting offensive linemen that are questionable going into this game. Taylor Decker, their left tackle, Graham Glasgow, their center, and then Christian Mahogany, one of their starting guards. So, I think the secondary is pretty down bad for the Detroit Lions heading into this game, and that should provide opportunities for Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, and the Steelers to throw the ball down the field, because this Lions team likes to play in your face. They like to play man coverage and all this different stuff, and I think that they're going to play, their share of single high coverage in this game. So I would expect some downfield shots from Rodgers to DK Metcalf to MVS, maybe some to Calvin Austin III, like we saw versus Baltimore. But I think there should be opportunities for this team to create some separation, get the ball down the field, and for Rodgers to have one of his most impressive performances of the season. But also, especially if Decker, Glasgow, Mahogany, if all 3 of them, or at least 2 of those guys, are not playing this week, Detroit's O-line could be in tough shape, especially if Decker, their left tackle, can't play. That means there's going to be a big mismatch for Alex Highsmith on that side of the offensive line. If they don't have their center, that could provide opportunities for Derrick Harmon, who's going to be back this week, or Cam Hayward to really eat, on Sunday afternoon. So, I think going into this game, guys, the dynamic is certainly going to come down to how well can the Pittsburgh Steelers stop the run game for Detroit. Can the Steelers turn the ball over on Detroit, a team that doesn't turn the football over very much? Can you stop the play action passing game? And those have been three things where the Steelers have struggled throughout this year. They've struggled against teams with good running backs for the most part. They've had some really standout performances, but you guys know kind of the deal here. It's kind of week to week when it comes to this run defense. And then teams that play a lot of under center play action have really killed the Steelers over the middle of the field. That's what the Lions love to do in the passing game, and then they don't turn the football over. And as we know, the Steelers defense has really lived and died from, turnover production this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this defense can do. If they can stop this number one scoring offense in the National Football League on their home turf this week and really have a successful performance, even without TJ Watt, even without Nick Herbig, even without James Pierre, that would be huge for this team and, the confidence of this group heading into the final weeks of the season and hopefully the NFL playoffs. Then on offense, certainly you want to play, some form of balanced football. You want to get the run game going, but I also think it's going to be important for this offense to match whatever Detroit does offensively. So that's going to take Aaron Rodgers throwing the football down the field. That's going to be taking some big shots down the field and hitting those to DK Metcalf. And, whether or not the Steelers win this game is going to come down to those question marks on both sides of the football. So we actually have a full in-depth preview breaking down this matchup on the channel already. I'll put the chip to that one in the top right and in the comments and description of today's program. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for this Steelers injury update. We're going to have more content for you guys coming out tomorrow, and make sure you guys enjoy some college football playoff action here this evening. And we might be seeing a couple of NFL draft prospect quarterbacks tonight. John Mateer and Ty Simpson dueling in the college football playoff tonight. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two guys play this evening. Might have some comments on that in tomorrow's video. We'll probably have a studio show. I will be in studio tomorrow on Saturday, so we'll get an early video out tomorrow, probably our weekly mailbag in the morning, followed by something that comes out in the evening. So appreciate all of your guys' support. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, here we go, Steelers.